Hey guys, welcome to How To. I'm Shubham and this is part 2 of how to create live search, autocomplete and live filtering in Django using AJAX and Django filter package. So in part 2 we have already created our APIs and we have seen how to do filtering based on ID, name, how to do search, how to do ordering in Django using the package. Okay, so in this video we are going to create the front end for this. So before we get started, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video and comment if you have any question, and all the links will be mentioned in the description below. So let me stop the server first, and if you see the project structure, this is source first, this is source, and then we have a template. So inside this template we are going to create a file called as index.html, and so we are going to create a function which will load our index.html. I'll call this as index. This will return a render and we'll pass in the request, and the template name is index.html. Okay, so first we'll create the autocomplete feature and then we'll create the live searching and filtering. Okay, so we'll go to HTML. In order to create autocomplete, we have to import jQuery UI first and also jQuery. Now I'm going to bring in some code that will help me to show you the filter. Okay, and now we have a script. All this code is coming from jQuery UI itself. And here we'll give our source in the jQuery autocomplete as it will be also a function which will accept a request and response, and it will come from AJAX. URL will be our URL that we created already in previous video. So if you haven't watched that video, make sure to go and watch the video. So this is my URL, API/random list, and also we'll have a search term which will be in our request.term. Then our type is get, and on success we will have another function which will have data, and this will be a response return. This I have to do a little bit of label and changes because from the backend we don't get the data as it is needed by autocomplete in the front end. So I have to do little bit of mapping and changes. So we'll accept item, and this will return the label which will be item.name, which comes from the backend, and ID, the value will be our item.id, which is our item's ID. That is, random list's name will be the label to be shown or to for the user over here, and ID will be the value, item ID. Now one more thing we have to do is on select, that is when we select anything in the autocomplete we want to show it properly. So this is what we do. So on this search input I just want to show the label, that is this thing, and on the ID one I want to show the ID. So that we are going to do it over here right now. So I'm going to select the search and then I'll give value of UI will have my item.label. I'm going to duplicate this and search dash ID, that is this input box. This input box should have my ID, which is value to the autocomplete. change this, and then we have to return false from here, otherwise it won't work. And for us to run this function, we have to create a URL. So let's go into urls.py, and then over here we are going to use path which will be blank. On blank path we are going to run that function, so it will be views.index, name will be whatever you want to name it, I will call it as index, and we need to import this path, so that will be from django.urls import path. So now we are ready to run this. Python manage.py run server. Let's go to the browser, and if we go to the blank path, we have a filter and we have to type it over here. So I'll inspect and show you all how it is working. We go to network and select XHR. Whatever we type and whatever API calls are made will be shown over here. So let me show you. If you remember, we have Apple present in the backend. Oh, we got some error. Search is undefined. Let me check what happened. Sorry, this is request.term and not terms. So now we have to refresh the page, type in app, and here we go. In the backend, a call is made with a search equal to app in query parameter, with this being our URL. And if we select, also we got another error. I'm sorry, this should be VAL and not VLA. Let me change it quickly. So on select over here, it was the problem, value VAL and not VLA. I'm going to refresh the page, and if we type Apple, here we get the ID and here we get the Apple. You can hide this and you can only show this filter to the user. And if we type M, it comes as Mustang. So this was the autocomplete part using jQuery and jQuery UI. So now let me show you all what actually came for. Let me shut down the server for a few minutes, and then we are going to rename everything. Yes, we are going to rename this index function, okay, because I want to create one more function that will load our view app. Rename it with _js, here as well js, and this also should be js, and I'm going to rename this also to be js. And now I'm going to create one more method which will load another index.html. Okay, this will be the main one which we are going to show. So for this, I'm going to create one more index.html file. Let's go to template, create index.html, and then we'll have another URL which will be loading index file only, and this I'll call it as JS. Now let's go to index.html. Here we're going to implement using emit. I'll import some of the plugins like Bootstrap, then Vue Tree Select, and then I'm going to import jQuery, then Vue, and then we are going to also have Bootstrap bundle, and then we are going to have Vue Tree Select JS. You know what, we have all the plugins ready. Let's create the UI first. Let me do it quickly. Okay, so our UI is complete. Now let me explain you all what I did. I created a div with ID equal to app. This is the most important one. And then we have Bootstrap class, that is for the UI. And then I have created one more div. And then we have a text input which has a v model equal to search. So I'm using this view v model, and there will be a variable called as search which we will create shortly, and whatever we type inside this input will be stored in this search variable. Then we have a view tree select, which also takes in v model, which is categories.selected, and whatever I select in this drop down will be selected in over here. And then we have options is from categories.options. Don't worry about these I'm going to create it shortly. And once on input, that means when we click on this, we will call this function that is called get data, and then this closes. Then we have a table, then table head, all these heads will be present. These classes are all the bootstrap classes, and they are just there for UI. Inside table body we have a table row which has v4, which is a loop, and it iterates over random list which we are going to create it shortly. And this is data. Then we are taking in data.id, data.name, data.category, and data.description. We are showing that to user using v-text, and then everything closes. So let's go to the script and create our view app. So now we are going to call it as new view, because this is our new view app, and it accepts a dictionary like this, and we are targeting the view to be to display it under this app. So I have to target this ID. Now we have to specify all the components that we are going to use in our app. So one of them is view tree select. So let me specify that. It will be a dictionary, and then I'm going to use this name tree select, which will be view tree select dot tree select. Now our components import is done. Now we need to create our data variables, that is whatever we have specified over here. The random list, search inside v model, over here categories.selected, categories.option. We are going to create those in this data variable because they are like storing data. So search is a text field, so I'm going to keep it as blank. Then we have categories in the choice here, so it will be categories. Category is a dictionary, so we have over here selected and options. So we are going to do the same thing. Selected, by default this will be null, and options by default will be blank. By doing a AJAX call to the backend, we are going to fill this option. Now after category we also have one more data variable called as random list, so we are going to create that as well over here. This will be a blank array. So before mounting the component, that is like when page load is done, we are going to call some functions. So everything I'm writing, every function that I'm creating will be inside the same view app, so that's why I'm going to use this over here. I'm going to call as this get categories. Get categories will be one function, and then I'm going to call another function that is get data. And now we'll have functions, that is they will be inside method like this. So we have one method called as get categories. I'm going to use where self is equal to this, so I'm just giving this to self. And then I'm going to create one more variable called as where URLs, which will be API/categories. So if you don't know what this URL is, you can go to this URL and check what it does. It takes us to the categories API that we created. And now we are going to have a get call. So this dot, since I'm using jQuery, so instead of going for AJAX calls, I'm going to use this shorthand methods, that $.get, the equivalent. So I'm going to pass in the URL, and then on done, there will be another function which has response. Now over here I can't directly assign the response data, whatever comes from the backend, to the options category options. Why? Because this tree select accepts options to be in certain format. That is, it should have a ID and it should have something called as label. Label will be shown to the user and ID will be stored when we select anything inside this variable. So we have to do a little changes over here. So I'm going to iterate over response for each element. I'm going to push every element inside categories dot options. So it will be self dot, because I have assigned this to self. So self dot categories dot options dot push. What I'm going to push? I'm going to push these two, that is ID and label. But what they will be, my current element is this, so element dot ID, and this will be element dot name, because in our backend we don't have anything called as label, but we have something called as name. Here in category model we have something called as name. This same name is given to the label, and this is done. Now we have to create our second method, that is get data. Get data will be another function. Same thing, we will give the reference of this to self, and we will have where URL is API / random list. I'm just going to put a question mark over here, you will understand it later. And then we are going to do a call to the backend. So I'm just going to copy paste this $.get URL, and then on done I'm going to save the response to random lists. Now let's check what this does. So let me refresh the page, and if you see, right now we have a input box. This is supposed to be used for search. Then we have a drop down which has two options, those are coming from the backend, and then we have random list. So now whenever we type anything inside this, we want to make this search and update this data, correct? Yes. So for that we are right now saving everything inside this search variable, but then we are not utilizing that to call the backend. So let's call the backend. For that we'll go to index.html, and then in view we have something called as watchers. So I'm going to collapse this method, and after method we will have watch. So in watch what we are going to do is whenever this variable search, this input box search changes, we want to call get data method with updated data. So we are going to go watch on search, and we are going to call a function, and this will in turn call the method this dot get data. But in get data we have not specified to use our search keyword and filter based on that, so we have to do it over here right now. So I'm going to check if self.search has some data, then I'm going to append that to our URL. So it will be URL plus equal to, if you remember carefully, in the backend part we had done something called a search, which was equivalent to whatever data we were passing. If you remember, when we were doing the backend side of this code, we had, whenever we used to type anything in the search field and used to click on search, that time URL used to change whereby search was present, search equal to some whatever we had typed in the search box. So same thing we have to implement over here. So in URL we are going to append this search is equal to whatever we have typed in the search box. So here we go. So URL will be URL plus search equal to whatever we have typed, and this will be only when we have something in the search box, that is input box. So now let's refresh, and now if we search anything, a call is made to the backend with a term whatever we type inside this box and returns filtered data, and that is displayed over here. Now what if we want to filter this data only on basis of the category? Call is made to the backend, but then it is not filtering. Why is that? Because if you look at here, there's no filter is going, that is no query param specified that category should be A1 or 2. So let's do that now. We are going to check if there exists any selected options in the category. So categories dot selected, and again URL will change to, if you all remember carefully, in the backend side I had told you when we pass multiple filters to the backend we have to separate them by ampersand, and the same thing we are going to do over here, because there can be a search term and then we should also have a filter which filters our data by category. Okay, so we are going to give that. So category will be equal to self.categories.selected, whatever we select in the drop down. And also you all might think why this function, this method is getting called when we select a category. So if you look carefully over here in select tree, we have specified on input we should call this get data, which is this same method. And now if we save and refresh this page and go over here, if we select a category, you all can see in the back end a call is made with category equal to 1, and if we change to fruit, a call is made with category equal to 2, and the Django returns the random list filtered with only this category, that is fruit. I hope you all have learned something new, and if you all have, do like this video, and if you all want to learn more, do subscribe to our channel and comment if any suggestions or you all want to see on videos on specific topic. Thank you for watching. See you next time.